Christmas is a great time to discuss reviving hope in our lives. We are celebrating the hope of the world arriving as a baby. One definition of hope is to expect with confidence, and we can put all our hope in Jesus because we have confidence in who He is. But what happens when life throws us a curveball? When in the natural, it doesn't look as if we can confidently expect what we desire more than anything. Our guest today, Robyn, deeply desired for her son to be healed. And as you hear her story, you will hear some very tender moments, and you will hear moments of celebration as she takes us on her son Thomas's journey. I think you can relate to her story in many ways. Perhaps you can relate to the tension she felt in the midst of the unknown, or the number of emotions that existed in the gap between challenge and breakthrough. In some way, we've all been there. When life throws you a curveball, we pray that you will remember Robyn's story, that you would lean into your relationship with Jesus a little closer, worship a little louder, and allow others to carry the hope for you when it feels too heavy. May you find hope and encouragement in today's episode with Robyn Schwarz. Welcome to Living the Reclaimed Life podcast. I'm Denisha. We're glad you're here for conversations that revive hope, inspire healing, and encourage you to live a vibrant life with Christ. So grab a cup of coffee as we chat with today's guest. Robyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited because, this is fun how we ended up getting connected. Mm-hmm. Nancy, who was our executive assistant and also just a dear friend, Robyn, you and I both go to the same church as Nancy does.
Yes.
And Nancy came back to me. It'd gone to I think an employee volunteer Christmas party or party.
It was a Thanksgiving Friendsgiving.
Oh, how fun.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
It was so fun.
And Nancy heard your story. She heard this amazing story that God has given your family, and not 10 years ago, but in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So we are going to talk about that today, and we're talking about reviving hope this month. Yeah. And as we do that, you guys, I just have to tell you, as Nancy shared Robyn's story and her family's story with me, I revived hope in my heart. So I'm excited as you share this. And there's definitely some tender moments and there's some celebratory moments. Yeah. And so as we kick this off, Robyn, you and your husband have been married for 13 years.
We have.
And 3 kiddos. What are the ages of your kiddos?
Our oldest is 11. He's a boy. And I've got a girl that's 6. And then our Thomas, who's 2.
2. Oh,
just
I love
turned
these.
2.
Still have little ones. We both have a history in kids ministry, which just made me happy.
Yes.
So how long did you work in kids ministry? And you still are too.
I'm still involved. I'm just not working anymore. But I was working there for about 2 years.
Wow. Nice.
So nice. I love it.
I love that you said you had toys on your desk.
I did.
To remind you, this is what we're here for, these kiddos. Yeah. So, yes, I loved working in kids ministry myself. Mm. So we have that in common there.
That's good.
So, Robyn, this incredible story that Nancy told me about, it began this June. We're in December right now of 2022, because some people may be listening to this even a couple of years from now. Mm-hmm. And this happened in June. So you have 3 kids, normal family life, you're working, doing all the things, and everything kind of just came to a halt in some ways. And take us back to June. What did that look like for your family?
Okay. So June, we were preparing for our VBS at church. So I'm very busy with that. And Thomas had been sick for probably a week. All the things babies go through, you think, oh, it's teething, or oh, it's this, or oh, it's that. We had taken him to the doctor multiple times in a week's time, and they always sent us home and said, it's a virus.
Oh, aren't those viruses? That's such a booger because they can't do anything about it.
What is it?
Yeah, but what do we do? And you have 2 older kids.
Yes.
So Thomas being 2, this is not your first rodeo.
No, it's not. It's I've been through this. Okay, so we'll go home. We'll take Tylenol and, watch our fevers, all that stuff. And so I had went with our church. We had volunteered and we're, getting everything ready for VBS because it was starting the next day. Oof. And came home and realized he is not okay. I looked at him and I was like, babe, we've got to go right now. We have to go to the ER. And he's vomiting. He is not drinking. He is not eating. He won't play. He, what the doctors will call output was not great. So we got to a point when we thought, no, we have to trust our intuition. Mm-hmm. And so we rushed to the emergency room. And we're, normally, because I know a lot of people have probably visited an ER before, you wait in the lobby for probably an hour or two. Mm-hmm. Then you go see the registration person and they kind of evaluate how sick you are. And then you go back to the lobby and you wait another hour, 2, sometimes 3. Like, you don't know. It could be a very long time. But we went in 10 minutes. We were sitting with the registration lady and she got his heart rate, which was 220. And she took his blood pressure and it was like, I think the bottom number was like 40. And she looked at me. He's got a rash all over his body. He's still vomiting. And she said, I'll be right back. That's usually not a good sign. Right. So she comes back. She says, I have a room for you. We were there 10 minutes. We go to the ER, which is the pediatric ER, which is great. When we walk in his little room, we are followed by the doctor. Not the nurse, but the doctor. And that's when I'm like, okay, we're clearly, I thought, well, maybe they're just really on top of whatever is going on with him, But he got incrementally sick in that emergency room. Like his little belly was just growing and growing. And we're like, why is this happening? What's going on? So they did all the tests. They did the CTs. They did the ultrasounds. They did, I don't even know all the things. They just brought machines in and were starting to work on him. And in passing, one of the nurses said, well, you do know what's going on. I said, no one's talked to us at all. Because they're so busy treating him that parents sometimes get left in the wake of this. And she said, well, it looks like his appendix has burst. And I'm like, he's 20 months old. Wow. Like what? That doesn't happen, And she said, yeah, he has 3 abscesses in his stomach. And we found out later that he's also septic. Mm. So his entire body is toxic. It is literally killing him from the inside out. We didn't know. We thought, oh, it's the flu. We thought, oh, it's strep. Oh, yeah. It's something. Because that's what our doctors had said.
Well, it's a virus.
And that's what they thought too.
Yeah.
In all fairness, it was, So that night got incrementally worse. And they escorted us to another room in the ER. And the social worker arrives. And she's trying to give us, sodas and snacks. And you're like, I don't care. I don't want that right now. Why are you here? And it's starting to kind of hit us as they wheel out the code machine. And I'm like, this is bad. This is really bad. Mm. So then, you have these John always said, these surgeons are coming in plain clothes. They don't have their lab jackets on. They don't have, they're coming from home, and you're like, okay. So then they come in and they tell you, we're going to do all that we can. We got this one last thing we can try. And so we're like, okay, what do we do now? Because you're helpless.
Your whole world just changed in the matter of minutes. 24 hours. Not even that.
It was just like, how is this possible? You're supposed to come into the ER, get a little bit of medicine or something, right? And it's going to be better. Not, oh my gosh. So they said, we had to sign some forms to let them do these procedures and stuff. So they went in and they placed a drain, and they said, we're gonna do this, and our hope is that it turns him around. I don't know if he'll make it out of it. Oh. So they escort us out, and they let us give him one last kiss. It's like, and the nurses and doctors wouldn't even move. They would have if I had pushed them, but all I had access to was his hand. That's it. I couldn't even get to his face. Mm. And I remember they wheeled him out, and I said, God, just give me that hand back. Mm. I want those little hands again. It was a rough night.
I can't imagine.
And the procedure worked. They were able to put a drain in. And they came back and were like, hey, this worked, but we can't promise you anything.
They still didn't know at that point even that he
they
was
didn't even
make it.
They're like, I think they were still shocked that he was still alive at that point.
Wow.
And so they, he's back at the PICU, and they're like, he made it through this, but let's not put our guard down yet. It's not time for that. And I was like, okay. And so we get in the room, and he's sedated. He's got wires coming out everywhere, and it's, you never expect to see your kid like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he made it through the night, and then he made it through the next day, and the next day. And it's just like every day was a little bit of a win.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, so we've got a major flaw here. We've got to really work on this, But he was sedated for, I think I told you, about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Something like that. Timelines are messy when you're in the hospital, so there may be, I have to go back and see just how long. But I mean, he had, they thought maybe his kidneys would fail. They weren't sure how his heart would do. There were so many questions, but the first part was like, okay, so we have to get the fluid out. We have to get the abscess is taken care of. So they did that. And then they had to do transfusions on his blood because his blood's toxic, and he's, basically his blood cells are attacking him. Mm. And so they have to do transfusion after transfusion. I don't even know. I think he had like 3 or 4. Wow. Honestly, I don't know.
20 months old.
I said, do what you have to do. Yeah. You don't have to ask me.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. Like, clearly we don't know. And so you just do what you have to do to save him. And so they did. They did all these things to him. They had PICC lines. They had to go place a PICC line. They had, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but we had arterial lines. We had IVs for medicine. We had, the drain was in, like the tube for breathing, like all the stuff, like tons of things all over him. But I had his hand. I got to touch his hand.
You got his hand back.
I got his hand back. And I was telling somebody this past week, it's really, it really brings you a different level of faith when you pray over a child, when you lay hands on the child and pray, especially your own.
Yeah.
But just in general, because that happened all day long, all night long. We had lots of people come to visit, pastors from our church, and pray over him, pray over us, keep us sane as we're in there, and pray over the nurses. We did that a lot too.
And at VBS, that still happened, right?
That's right.
VBS still happens.
Yes, they did.
What happened during VBS? What did they do for Thomas?
They sent me the video, and I cried and I cried and I cried. But they had a great turnout, and they said, little Thomas is sick, and we're going to pray for Thomas that he will be healed miraculously, because at that time, he was really, really sick. My own daughter was in that room, because she still got to attend. And they sent me a video, and our kids pastor is on stage, and he said, "This is how we're going to pray." And he taught them how to pray for our baby. And every kid in that room had their hands raised, and they were praying over him. I mean, I think there was 400 kids. I don't even remember the number. I should ask. But I'm looking at that going, okay, God, this is bigger than us. This is bigger than just Thomas getting sick and going through this when you feel like you're alone in that hospital room. There's so much prayer going out for you that you don't even know about. And that was one instance. And I know that it happened at OV at our Valley campus, and it happened at, our South campus and all this other stuff. And it's just amazing to see that kids are learning to pray because of Thomas. If nothing else.
Right.
Right? That brought me hope in that time. Because I'm like, okay, God, you're already doing something.
Yeah.
You're already working. Even through tragedies, he's working it out for his good. And so that was a little snippet of hope.
A little hope that came through
in that time.
The hard parts.
And then I'm trying to think what happened. So he had the PICC line by his leg, his upper leg. And because he's so little and the lines are just what they are, they're bigger for him, and a blocked blood flow to his right extremity. So within a couple days, his foot was black. His toes were black.
So something they were trying to do to help him ended up helping
completely
one thing
backfired.
But hurting something else.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they had to replace it. So they had to go take it out and replace it somewhere else. And that was hard because, when you're a baby, you only have so many spots for those, the large arteries and things. And so they had to do that. And then we had to address the foot. And there were lots of talks. Our surgeon would come in and she said, we're probably going to have to amputate the foot.
Wow.
So it's it was like another crush to your spirit,
There are so many layers, it feels like, to, what about his heart,
like you got
his kidneys, you
feel like you get all up here and you're like, oh, we're doing so good. And then it crushes you.
Yeah.
But then I loved how a nurse put it. And they said, well, the fact that she's worried about the foot and not his life. And I said, that's right. I said, God, we can do without a foot. I'll trust you with it. So we prayed diligently over that foot, right? We asked God, please bring back the blood flow to the foot.
Yeah.
And he did. It was a beautiful moment. Our pastor's wife was there. Our campus pastor was there. And we were just praying, and the doctor happens to come in, right? Just at that moment. And they use a pulse oximeter thing. Can't remember what everything's called, so forgive me.
You learned a lot of new terms.
I learned a lot of terms, but I'm like, what is this now? So she comes in and she just starts looking for the blood flow, because that's what they did. Every hour they would come check. And miraculously, there it is. It was faint, but it was there. And I tell you what, I think we all were jumping for joy in that room, because I'm like, God answered our prayer. And sometimes you don't always get to see a physical healing like that.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And of course, that doctor got to see it too. So it was just so beautiful of a moment. And they kept telling us, they're like, well, adults, when they have necrotic toes like this, would have to lose it. They said, I've never seen an instance where it comes back. But with kids, they're like, sometimes, and they're like, I'm not going to give you all this false hope, but sometimes it will come back. And to this day, he has no black toes.
Okay, that's amazing.
And we have all 10.
And you have all 10 toes.
All 10 toes. He has a little bit of a funny walk right now because he's, kind of getting used to walking on that again. And we're probably going to have some reconstructive on it, but we have them.
That's amazing.
We have them.
I mean, I can
It's insane.
imagining, his foot going black.
Yeah.
So at one point they're talking about his life being
Right.
at stake.
Yeah.
And then we get down to, okay, his organs, everything's going
Right.
well, but oops. Now
What's
this
this?
happened and
Yeah.
his foot turns black. His
Yeah.
toes are black.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay, we might lose a foot, but we get to keep our boy.
Right.
And you're praying for blood flow to go. They're
Yeah.
coming in, checking it with the pulse ox, which we normally
Yeah.
put on our fingers,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But they're looking for any sign that that foot
Yeah.
is alive and moving,
Right.
circulating.
Right.
And then, so they find that it's faint, but it's there.
It's there.
Uh-huh. And they're like, okay, here we are. Now he's walking. What did it, so his poor little sweet foot, I can imagine it being black. Did it just start to, the blood flow came back? And
It's starting like little, I mean, and I'm talking like weeks
wow.
time, but little by little, pink would reappear.
Wow.
A little more pink and a little more pink. And they put like, I can't remember what they called it, but it was literally like an air mattress full of hot air. And they would put it over his foot because if you think about heat, makes your blood flow and it like relaxes your arteries and your veins and all this stuff. And so they used that for a long time. You know, it's like they did everything they could to make that work, you know. And so then he started to kind of wake up a little bit, and they, you know, one day they were like, well, I think we're going to try to take him off the breathing tube. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And so that worked. And then he started to eat a little bit, you know, and every day was a little bit of something, but then they had to get him off the pain meds, which that was really, really hard to see your baby come off of, because he had really strong pain meds. Because, I mean, the poor kid was been through everything. And so that was, you know, there was different phases of his healing journey that each time I was like, okay, here we go again. You have to climb this mountain, believe that God's up there and he's going to do this. He is going to do this because he's not going to bring you all the way here and then just let you fall. Like that's not our God. Right.
Yeah.
And so I got to see God come through at everything we asked.
Time and time
again. And see people believing for us, you know, and taking care of us and meeting needs we didn't even know we had, you know. But we spent 26 days in the hospital.
Wow.
And it felt like the longest month of my life. But we got to go home. And it was a glorious, glorious day. We got to go home, you know.
With all 10 toes.
All 10 toes.
Nancy said, it's the tale of 10 toes.
She said that to me, and I'm like, yes, yes.
Well, and I mean, what a roller coaster. Like you said, you know, you're on the mountaintop with God celebrating a moment of victory. Yeah. And then the next day you didn't know what was coming your way, but all through, whether it be a mountaintop experience or a valley day. Yeah. God was with you the whole time.
100%.
What did your prayers look like during that time, Robyn?
Oh man. Well, I remember the prayer in the ER. My faith increased. I cannot tell you how much during this time. Because I always felt like, you know how you look at someone, you go, man, they have such a powerful prayer. I want that prayer, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't know how they got that prayer. But that night, I remember looking at John, I'm like, what do we do? And he's like, I don't know. Like, he doesn't have an answer, you know? Yeah. So we are calling out to God. We are declaring the healing over him. And I'm like, God, don't take him now. He's only 20 months old at the time. I'm like, there's so much more. There's so much more. He's a gift, you know? And I'm like, please let us take care of him. Don't take him yet. Like, almost screaming at God, like, you have to come through. Yeah. But knowing that he is, like, there was peace surrounding us. I don't know, it's because others were praying for us. But there was a peace, albeit you're scared and fearful and, you know, you feel like you could just pass out at any moment, you know, which is probably why they bring you the snacks.
They're trying to keep your blood sugar up.
Keep your blood sugar up because they don't want you to be in trouble either.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can't be laying in a hospital bed when your kid is going through this.
Yeah.
And so I just remember calling out to God and just not caring who was around, who could hear me, right? Just like pleading with him, you know, just declaring it over him, telling God that I trust him. Even when my faith felt weak, I said, even with my unbelief, help me with it, right? Because I want to trust you and I want to know that you're going to come through and I'm waiting to hear from you.
Yeah.
But I remember just like, I couldn't tell you how long it was. I mean, it was a long time waiting for that surgery to be over.
Oh, I can, yeah.
It probably was not that long, but it felt like eternity.
I'll bet it did.
So, I mean, our prayers, our faith has changed. We don't pray the same. We don't read the Bible the same. We don't, everything's different. So,
and at one point, the doctors were even coming in your room and saying, like, you had special privileges because of how sick Thomas was.
Yeah.
And what were the doctors saying in the room? And what did this mama, I
forgot about this part.
Yes, this is
This
just
is a good part.
Amazing faith-filled mama who's declaring life, declaring healing, praying to God, reaching out in the scared moments, in the we had a victory, and in the we don't know what's going to happen today moments. Doctors are coming in. Tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, this is good. So the doctors, they kind of have to set you up for the worst case. And I know that they have to do that. I get the whole system of that because sometimes it doesn't end like our story ends.
Yeah.
But they come in, they said, you know, Miss Schwarz, we're trying, we're doing everything we can, but just know that he's probably not going to make it. Every day I would hear, we're doing this, but he's probably not going to make it. And a lot of times they would come in leading off with that. And I'm like, I can't handle it. You walk in his room, clearly you can see that he's not in a good state. You know, he's not awake. He's not eating. He's on a ventilator. Like, yes, he is a sick, sick child. And I just got fed up with it. Just like, I know that he's sick. I don't need you coming in and reminding me day after day after day. So I finally, I created a little bit of a rapport with I don't know what you call her, but she was the head doctor on the floor of the pediatric ICU. And so she would make her rounds and she would come check periodically through the day. So there was a moment where she came in and it was just John and I and her. And I looked at her, I said, I don't know if you have a great relationship with these surgeons that are coming in, these different specialists that come in. I said, but I'm tired. We are not going to speak these words in this room anymore. I said, we will speak life, and we're only going to speak life in here. If you want to come in and tell me the thing that you're going to do and you're going to have this procedure or whatever, I said, fine, that's great. But we're going to have faith in here and we're going to speak life. If you want to have a hard conversation, let's go in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Let's go in another room because it doesn't live here.
Good job, Mama.
I don't know. That was the Holy Spirit.
I know. I'm like, oh.
I am not that person. I'm usually kind of like, whatever you need to do, you know.
Yep. This was roaring, Mama, though. This was okay. We're speaking and declaring stirring. Life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I told her, I said, we're just not going to do that here. I don't know how you usually do things, but here we're speaking life. Mm-hmm. And she just, later that day, after her shift was over, she came back to my room, Thomas's room, and she said, you know, I have a little girl at home. She's 9. And she goes, I work long hours, obviously. She said, sometimes how my daughter copes with me being gone is getting to hear stories of the little ones that I get to help and how she can pray for them. And I was like, well, yes. I said, tell her all about them. Tell her our names. Tell her everything about them. I said, that brings me so much joy knowing that, she had to be off the clock having this conversation with me. Right. But it was like, she sees our faith here. It's clear.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taking it home to her daughter. Her daughter is learning to pray over Thomas. Like,
the ripple
not
effect.
even in church.
Yes.
She's a completely different world from us. And I'm like, God, yes. Yes.
The ripple effect of your guys' faith, even in the hardest moments, was beautiful.
It really was.
So you got to bring him home.
We did.
And there was an interesting fact about this ruptured appendix. So you picture this, he's too sick, right, to actually go in and remove his appendix at this point. They're just
way
treating.
Too risky.
Yeah.
They said, no, we're not. Because they're like, he won't make it out alive. We could do it, but I fear that the risk is too great. And the surgeon actually told me during our stay, she said, I have grappled with that decision this whole time. She said, could I have done something more to help him quicker? All these things, because she goes, what if I made the wrong decision and he doesn't make it? Like,
the weight of that.
The weight of that, I think, was really crushing for her. Like she had a really hard time with that. And I said, trust your gut. I said, I'm trusting my faith, and I know that you're using your experience. So I said, I think we wait. And so we saw her multiple times. We saw her almost every day in the hospital. And then we finally felt like it was September 13th when we had his surgery. And she said, it's time to take the appendix out. He is healthy enough. His inflammation's down. He can handle it now. I said, okay. So we went in, did the surgery. And we're in the waiting room, with all these other families. She comes in and she just sits next to us and slumps in her seat. I'll never forget that. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, waiting to hear, I'm like, is he okay? Is he okay? She goes, oh, he's fine. He's fine. I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, you could have led off with that, excuse me. And so anyway, she goes, guys, I don't know. I'm like, okay. And she said the word, I'll never forget this. She said, his appendix is whole. They went in there thinking this appendix is just,
exploded. I mean,
literally.
That's what I imagined.
That's what I imagined too. And I think she did too. And she's like, yeah, it was normal. I'm like, stop. I was like, did you take it out? She goes, well, yeah.
And it's normal. And that's not normal. Something like, this is an organ that ruptured, that began to make his body septic.
Yes.
And so clearly there's an issue.
Yes.
And she goes in, gets to see the organ, and it is whole. Like, what?
Yes.
And
and she goes, I looked everywhere. She goes, I looked for like a tear in maybe the intestines or a hole somewhere, anywhere that could have leaked. And I said, he had 3 abscesses that night. I said, and it happened fast. I said, there's no like slow leak happening here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's whole? Like, what? So this woman who's done these types of surgeries, I think she said like 40 years or something.
Wow.
She did not have an answer. She couldn't. And she goes, I guess we'll wait for the pathology report to come back. So we did the follow-up with her, and she goes, it shows no sign of an appendix rupturing.
That's crazy.
I have no earthly idea why this happened and what it actually was.
What did you say back to her?
And I'm like, I said, well, I know what happened. I said, God healed our little boy. I said, whether it was the ruptured appendix, whether it was something else that happened very quickly that day, I said, it makes sense that it would be ruptured appendix because that's all the signs point to it, But I'm like, he healed him. And I've seen her multiple times since then. And she's the same doctor that would come in and tell me he's going to die. But she had to tell me.
Right.
I mean, legally had to come in and kind of help me understand that it's bad. Right. And now we have the best relationship, her and I. And I've seen her many times, and she's seen him for multiple follow-ups after the surgery, which weren't entirely needed. But she keeps following him just because she wants to see his toes, she tells me.
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. But I remember the last time I saw her, we were in the lobby saying bye, and she goes, I'm just so glad that Thomas made it through, and it's our faith that's got us through. And she started talking about like him being prayed over and all this stuff. And I'm going, is this the same woman? And I'm like, God, you are working miracles in her too.
Yeah.
It's not just Thomas.
Yes.
It's not just our little family. Like, I know that the whole floor was impacted. You know, all the nurses, the doctors that saw him, you know, because you couldn't come in his room and not feel the presence of God in there. It was beautiful. It was strong. That's the only thing that got us through.
And you may never know the full ripple effect.
I'm sure I won't.
From those children in VBS, those 400 kids learning how to pray in faith for healing.
Exactly.
To the parents that they went home and talked to, to the friends that they may have in the future that are sick and they remember that moment with Thomas. To the doctors, the nurses, that this particular doctor, the 9-year-old that's at home of the mama who's working and praying for you guys, to your church family that was praying in faith and standing with you guys. I mean, as you are going through what I can only imagine while at the hospital, those 26 days, God is so much bigger than what was happening in that room. And he knew what he was doing with Thomas. He knew what he was, and you guys were declaring. I just love that you're like, you can talk to me in the hall about this, but here we speak life. And I was like, oh, I love that. That's like a fierce mama faith building up. And you because it was a contradictory atmosphere in a sense, right? You've been praying, you have your pastors over there praying, and it's like, this doesn't fit in here.
No.
And I love
it would bring
all
me
of that.
Down.
Yeah. Oh, I can't imagine.
Our senior pastor came over one night. It was late, and we had finally went to the cafeteria to eat something because we're not hungry, but you know, you
have to at some point.
You need to take a break.
Yeah.
You know, and so we come back up, and he's sitting there, and he said, "I just feel like the Holy Spirit was saying you need to hear." What did he say? You need to hear encouragement. You need to hear something different, because all we're hearing is this is bad. It's probably not going to work out in our favor. He's declining, all these things. You know, we're hearing the worst scenario, and we're like, our spirit is low. Yeah. We're weak. Right. And I kept telling John, I said that night, I remember I said at dinner, we were at the cafeteria, and I said, I need somebody else's faith to bring me up. Right? Like, I got the vision while we were at the hospital where you have your arms and, you know, people are grabbing you by the arms and lifting you up. That's what a community does.
Yes.
Of believers. Even if you can't make it to the hospital or make it to the whatever you are doing, like knowing that there's someone praying for you, like truly lifting your name up to heaven, and you're taking their faith to build up your own until you can stand and do it yourself. And we did that for a while. Like we took the faith of others as our own for a while until we were strong enough to stand.
I love that I love the Holy Spirit speaking to Pastor to say, I feel like you need encouragement. And that's exactly what you had just said you needed in the cafeteria.
Literally 10 minutes before that, I was like, all right, God, like we're low tonight. We're low. And I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to ask for this. But if you could just come through, like if you could help us with this, you know? Because everybody always asks you, what do you need? What do you need? Yeah, you don't know. You have no idea.
Yeah. But I need to see my boy going home with me is what I need to see.
I was like, I need him.
Yes.
I need him.
Yeah. Oh, what prayer warriors you had around you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Robyn, what would you say? You know, we may have people listening who maybe are on the other side of something like this, whether it's a child, a spouse, a friend, a parent, and they may be on the other side and they can praise God just with you and be like, yes, I have seen God do those things. Yeah. And I love this story because it encourages my faith.
Yeah.
You know, when I hear it, when I heard your story and Nan said, you got to hear the tale of 10 toes. And I heard it, I thought, man, that is reviving hope.
Yes.
So if someone was listening and they're not on the other side yet, and they're still in that 26 days, what would you say if they're low in their hope? What would you say to them?
Oh, there's so many things popping up right now. Because I know those hospital rooms can be very lonely. My heart hurts for those that are going through it. Sorry. But you are not alone. Put on that worship music. Read scriptures over that loved one. I cannot say that enough. Declare his promises over that loved one. Pray your heart out. Pray for the doctors and the nurses. Ask God to bring someone to you, because he will. In your most needed moment, he's there. And just rest in him, because, you know, the doctors are doing everything they can. But God is a God of miracles. He wants to heal. He wants to be there with you and sit with you in it. Just, you know, prepare a spot next to you for him, you know, because he is there. And I know that in that room for us, we had a peace that was just unexplainable. There were moments of just, you know, sobbing and crying out. But there were so many moments of just being able to sit and breathe deeply and know that God's going to take care of him and I don't have to fret.
Yeah.
I worried a little. I was fearful a little, but I didn't have to fret because I knew that he was there and he was healing him from the inside out.
Amen. Yeah.
And so we literally have to believe that he's there.
Yeah.
So whatever increases your faith, whether it be people, whether it be prayers, whether it be worship music, you know, all of it, do all of it.
Yeah. And I love that you didn't isolate.
Yeah.
It would be, I mean, you're
it's
isolated.
So easy to do.
Right? You're isolated in the hospital, but you could have told everybody, just stay away.
I don't want anybody here. Yeah. I could have done that.
Yeah. And if you are listening and you're going through a hard time, I think that's a beautiful example of a community of believers that came alongside. And sometimes people don't know what to do when something like that's going on. Yes. And so sometimes just showing up for them, allowing people to show up for you. Yeah. It's okay that we need each other. We were wired for connection. We're wired to need one another as believers. And just like you heard with Robyn and John, we need somebody's faith. And God sends Pastor in with, this. I feel like you just need encouragement in your faith right now.
Yeah.
So allow people to be there for you. That is what the body of Christ is meant to do. We're to hold each other's arms up when we feel like we can't do it anymore. Yeah. And God is bigger than what you're going through.
Yes.
I remember one time when we were going through something hard, the Lord said, I know the end from the beginning. Things that are out of your reach are in the palm of my hand. Yeah. And I'll never forget that. And I always tell myself, okay, you know the end from the beginning. I am in this moment right now. Yeah. But he knew the end from the beginning with your Thomas. Yeah. And the healing was out of your hand, but it was in the palm of his hand the whole time.
Yeah. So, and I just kept seeing just take the next step. How there's a pathway of stones, and it felt like, just step on this next stone and we'll address what we need to address there. And then we'll go to the next one. Yeah. Go to the next one. We don't have to see the end.
Yes. Yeah.
You don't have to see what the outcome is. You just have to follow that journey with him.
There's a peace and a comfort in that, because
Yeah.
when you try to eat the whole elephant,
Yes.
right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. To try to look for that end is too hard. But to know in this moment, we're going to stand with the Lord. We're going to speak life here. I will never forget your testimony for the soul's sake. If I'm ever in a position where someone is speaking contrary to, I know what God's heart is, like I'm going to declare that. Here we speak life.
Here we speak life. And it's applicable on lots of different
and so
fronts.
many, right? Yes. Whether it be your marriage, whether it be like anything that is dead that needs to come back to life, a relationship with your child.
Right.
So many different things. So Robyn, thank you so much for sharing. I know this is a hard story. It's still very fresh.
It is. It's very fresh.
Yeah.
So hopefully I got through it without too many tears.
You did amazing. Thank you for your courage, because your courage to share really does revive hope in all of us. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And I would like to add, if you are in a situation, I know Christmas can be a time of reviving hope, and it can be amazing, and it can also be very hard. And if you need some backup, if you need some prayer, if you need just to not feel isolated in wherever you are, we would love to just invite you to email us at connect@reclaimstory.com. There is not a robot behind that email. It is real people who truly do care and would love to support you in prayer. So feel free to send those prayer requests, and we can reach out back to you. Thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that Robyn and John and Thomas's story just revived hope for you today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. I pray you found hope in today's conversation, and maybe even feel a little less alone in your story. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Reclaimed Story. Want to learn more about living a reclaimed life and how you can be a part of our growing community of reclaimers? Check out our website at reclaimedstory.com. All of those links and more will be in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this inspirational podcast, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Not only will you be the first one to know when new content comes out, but it is also a huge help in helping us reach more people to live the reclaimed life.